everybody, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I wanted to show you how I made this little galaxy sheep plushie, which I just think is super cute. So to start off with, I took a piece of fabric that I actually used in my video the other day when I made that galaxy alpaca pillow, and what you want to do is draw out a rough kind of oval shape on it using a marker pen. You'll then want to fold this in on itself and cut this shape out. What you then want to do is sew these two pieces together along that oval-like shape, and you want to do this by hand or by machine. Now I'm just doing a quick stitch here as to show you how you can do it by hand, but I actually went and finished it off with a machine. So when you're sewing this shape, you'll want to make sure that you leave a gap to turn it inside out. So what I did was left one about 1 to 2 inches big on one of the sides. What I then did was cut off all the excess, and I actually left a little bit kind of hanging around the hole, and that's just so that I could turn it inside out and get a neater kind of finish once I seal it up. So like I said, I just cut off all the excess and then I just turned it inside out from that hole. So once inside out, I then took some polyester stuffing and just kind of stuffed up that shape. Now I put so much stuffing inside of this to make it really nice and fat, and you'll just want to add more and more until you're really happy with how fat the body kind of turns out. But I really focused like on the front and the back rather than put it on like the sides and sides where seams were, just so that it ends up being nice and round instead of just like quite wide and like thin. So yeah, you just want to keep stuffing until you're fully happy. So once fully stuffed, you'll then want to just stitch up that hole. I will zoom in a little bit here so that you can see a little bit better. And I just basically just did a really simple stitch over this. It doesn't really matter if it's like a bit messy or anything, because the plush itself is really kind of fluffy and will cover up any imperfections if there are any. So once you have the gap fully stitched up, you'll then want to just give it a little fluff out, make sure everything's just the way you want it before moving on to any details. But then if you are super happy like I am, you'll then want to move on to the little ears. So to make the ears, you want to fold the fabric in on itself again and draw out two kind of like, I don't know what you would call these, sausage kind of shapes. And you'll want to make these about 2/3 of the body long. You'll then want to stitch these around in the same technique that you used for the oval, and then you want to cut these out and cut off all the excess again. What you then want to do is turn them inside out, and to do this I just kind of like had my finger help me out on that bit and just kind of threaded them on my finger, which at the time honestly I thought it was so funny. Like, as you can see here, they did actually turn out to look like kind of like glove fingers, so maybe that's something to help you if like you can't sew small bits. You can just cut off the fingers of gloves to use for this bit, because look, they just look like glove fingers, and I just thought it was hilarious. Anyways, what you want to do is just fluff out all the fluff around where the stitching is to make sure that none of the kind of fluff is pointing inwards and you get any bold spots, and you just kind of want to fold in the end to make sure it's the right length for your sheep's ears. Really, you want to just put it up to the head and then just like kind of fiddle around with one to make sure that it's the right size and everything, and then just make the other one the exact same size. Now the reason that I made them longer so that we had a bit to fold in is so that you're left with no raw edges and you won't get any of that fraying or any of like fluffy bits of that falling off of your plushie, as that's the last thing we want to happen. Once you fold over these edges, you'll then want to secure them with some stitches, so you just want to go ahead and just do this really roughly just to make sure that the folds and stuff will stay down. You'll then want to just stitch this on top of the head wherever you want it to be. I just put mine kind of like on the top but off to the sides so that they were like little lamb ears, and yeah, I just really basically stitched that on just by popping loads of stitches in and out the ear and the body, and then just going around and either side of the ears. If this looks too fiddly, you can of course use fabric glue or hot glue. Fabric glue might be a little bit hard. You want something that's kind of more like a gel glue rather than a liquid one, as this type of plush fabric will absorb it really fast, like it won't just sit on the surface. So you'll need kind of like a gel based glue, not anything like a super glue or a watery based fabric glue. So once you have the first ear in place, you then want to go ahead and just work out where you want your second one to go and just secure that in the same way also. I just sped the video up here so that you don't have to sit and watch me do the exact same thing all over again. So next, moving on to the face, I then took a biro pen and just kind of drew out a oval shape on a white piece of felt. I then cut this out, and what I did was cut a little triangle into one of the sides to act as a dart, and I just kind of sewed these two pieces together so that the oval shape was a bit more 3D and would like puff out a bit from the plushie. You can keep it flat if you want to, but I wanted to add a little bit more dimension to the face. So yeah, I just cut out this triangle and like put it together so that I had the right amount of like 3D-ness in that oval shape. And then I just stitched these two bits together by using just a simple ladder stitch over the top of those two bits. I basically just wanted to seal those two bits together, so it might be an idea to use a bit of glue on this one if you're not very competent at doing small stitches or anything like that. But it really is just simple going back and forth, just making those two pieces line up as one again. So next, once you're happy with the kind of shape of that, you then want to go back to your plushie and just make sure that it is the right size. Now mine was way too big, it took up like half the little sheep, so I just cut mine down a couple of times, just going back and forth to make sure it was the right size and also like the right shape for the actual little sheep. So once I was finally happy with the little white bit, I then moved on to make the little face. So I actually used toy safety eyes for this, as I just love using them on my plushies. And to insert them, I just cut a little hole, popped the eye through and popped a little washer onto the back. And as usual, I just cut off the excess, as I make quite small plushies and I don't want really hard bits inside. So if I can just cut off the excess on the back, I will do so in these sorts of circumstances. So what I then did was just pop the face back on, made sure I was happy with the shape of it. I did go ahead and adjust it one more time just by taking off the bottom, as I felt like it just came down a little bit far for where I put the eyes on. And then what I did was just pinned it in place once I was completely happy. Next, taking a needle and thread, I just kind of stitched around half of the face, like the very top half, and I just left the bottom bit kind of open, and this was so that I could stuff it up later and make sure that the face was a little bit more 3D. As I said before, this can also be glued. You would need a gel based glue rather than a liquid one. Anything like super glue or anything like that wouldn't work because this plush fabric is really absorbent. So as you can see here, I've got that little opening and I just stuffed this up with a tiny bit of polyfill just to make the face more prominent, and then I just carried on stitching all the way around until it was fully secure. So next I took some white pom-pom trim and I just kind of cut the little pom-poms off and stitched these onto the body where I thought that its little feet would go. I just stitched these about 2 or 3 times into the body and up through the pom-pom, each time kind of moving along to the next one and just carrying on stitching them on. So next I moved on to do a little bit more detail on the sheep's face. I was actually just going to pop a little nose on, but I decided that I needed to do a little mouth and stuff, and I was actually inspired by, you know, the Amuse plushie. They do a little baby woolly sheeps. Yeah, well, I just absolutely love that plushie, and I figured that I could do a little face like that one. So I basically just based this face off that one with the little kind of nose and the mouth bit coming out of it. So I just doubled up a piece of black thread onto my needle, and I just kind of just went back and forth in and out with that thread just to make the nose and mouth section. I went ahead and doubled this up, so I did this like 2 times over to make sure it was really prominent and nice and neat. Now, if you don't feel confident enough to do this, you can of course use puffy paint. I was going to, but I didn't have it on me at the time, and I had some black thread, so I just used that because I was being really lazy and I couldn't be bothered to get up and go and get it. That's the honest truth. But yeah, puffy paint would probably be easier, but you'll just have to leave it dry. I feel like this technique with the thread might last a little bit longer, so it is completely down to you and what you feel most comfortable in doing with your own skill set. So yeah, once I was completely happy with the nose and the mouth section, I just kind of threaded that black thread throughout the side of the face, and then just tied it in a little knot over there and kind of cut it off over there so that I wasn't left with any of the black stitching or knots and stuff like that over, you know, in the middle of the face. What I then did was decided to put little bows onto the ears, as I felt like the ears were almost a little bit lost in the fabric, as obviously it matched, you know, the body colour. So what I did was just cut these off and sealed them up with a lighter, and I was inspired by the Amuse plushie again just to do this, as I felt like it would really separate the ears from the body. What I then did was took some blush. This is just my usual blush that I use for plushies and stuff like that, and I just really packed it on to the cheeks of the little lamb. Once I was completely happy with the blush, the plushie was then complete. So I'm super happy with how this turned out. It turned out so soft. I love the colours, love its little feet, love its little face and its little bows, and I just think it's so super cute and fat and chubby and so sweet. So yeah, I'll leave all the materials and stuff like that in the description below. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!